All right. Well, thank you for attending the conference, and especially thank you for attending ours. Ours is the last session before the final keynote. We're really excited to kick this off. Hopefully everybody's ready for their journey on prompting. We got some really good stuff here.
As you mentioned, this is the last breakout session of the conference, so we appreciate you being here. The session's called How to Get What You Want, the Art of Prompt Engineering for Copilot. So my name is Diane Phillips. I work for Microsoft. I'm Principal Partner Solution Architect, focused on skilling partners in AI at Copilot.
And I'm Michelle Gilbert. I'm a Principal M365 Copilot Architect, also at Microsoft. So really happy to be here and really start a journey with you on prompting. There's probably a wide range of varying degrees of maturity in the room. And of course, for those watching on recording, we wanted to first set a standard here on foundational understanding. So we're going to kick it off with some foundational. If that is maybe below what your level of knowledge is, don't worry. We have a lot more coming. We have best practices, also advanced prompting, and then personal productivity, which is really the key piece of how to get what you want with prompting. So let's go ahead and get started. As you have seen this slide over at the M365 Community Conference logo, there has been a lot of changes, right? We're all trying to keep up. What I really want to say here is that thank you so much, because a lot of your feedback, whether you gave that feedback inside of the app itself or you told your Microsoft account team member, we heard you, and we have added so many features to the product, from finally going Copilot GA from the EAP era to also having Copilot Chat, and so many other capabilities and features inside of our product. So just a really huge shout out to say thank you for helping to build this product. And as you know, M365 Copilot is now in almost every product that we have today. We first started off with a first phased approach. We put it inside and integrated it into our core applications. So whether that was in Outlook or Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Excel, we didn't stop there. We did a measurement of features that you wanted. We added them in, and then at the same time went to the next phase to products like Whiteboard and Forms. You're going to see more and more. I know there was a session that was here earlier today on SharePoint agents. So we are really bringing Copilot experiences into all the Microsoft 365 products. And really, Copilot is the UI for AI. As you can see, it is a front door to all of your agents, all underlining with a Copilot control system. So what is a prompt? I bet many of you have begun your journey at prompting, but truly for those of you that are in the beginning phase, prompts are really how you have a conversation through Copilot. Much like search, as we've learned and used keywords in the past, this is now using natural language inside of the search box, right? And a prompt is really a set of instructions that you give Copilot to get what you want. And what makes an effective prompt? I really like to say that this is a lot like communication 101. When we talk to our colleagues, our managers, our kids, our parents, it really is about being an effective communicator. And as you can see, the less effective, probably the worse results you're going to get. So if you are not very clear, if you're vague, just use a few words, if there's no context, then Copilot can't understand what you need. But if you're more effective, right, specific in detail, in full sentences, with instructions, and using some sort of tone or purpose, you're going to get a lot better results. An example on the slide really is summarize news about a company name. It's kind of vague, right? What do you really want? What are you trying to get from that? A better example would be, I am working in marketing, so I'm adding a persona to it. I focus on competitive research. Then I would like it to give me a concise summary about the recent news about company, and then focus on different announcements about a new product line, maybe provide the answer in 2 or 3 paragraphs. We might want to add it in to a bullet list, maybe to a table, maybe you want to even examine other companies. And so you could have it say, this company and this company, give me the pros and cons. So the more effective you are, is the better result that you're going to get. And we're going to cover that today and what are the most effective ways to prompt. The first one, when I covered, I'm sure many of you are very familiar with this slide. This is telling Copilot what you need in these types of prompts. First one, learn. Second, edit, transform, summarize, create, and catch up. These are the first types of prompts that are built in, and these are the words or the keywords that you would use when you're starting a prompt. My favorite one is summarize, and that is absolutely fantastic because if you ever get a 20-page document and you just don't have the time, but you need to know the highlights, summarization is absolutely fantastic. And then, of course, many of us are creating things, right? And we get stuck on that blank page. And the create option is just absolutely remarkable. Whether you're doing a creation of a presentation, creation of a document, creation of a brief, no matter where you're at, it's going to help you generate what you need. But again, you're going to want to be specific about what you want Copilot to do. So how can Copilot help you with work? Has anyone ever got an email, and I'm sure many of you have, it's Friday. It's 3:30 p.m. You are getting excited for the weekend. You are cognitively exhausted. You've worked really hard. However, you get an email from your manager and it says, hey, what do you think? And it is a long thread. Now, normally, we've all been there, right? And normally that might take maybe an hour or at least 30 minutes to kind of go through it and then figure out what is expected of you as a response. And knowing it's your manager, you probably should answer and not wait until Monday. The best part about that is in Copilot and Outlook, you have summarization. So not only can you summarize that entire thread and it will give you 4 or 5 bullet points, but also you can see who said what, especially if it's an email thread that has branching, because, we always have to add another person in and then add another person in. And so there's all these 50 threads and you have to make a lot of sense of it. You can now use summarization to do those recaps for you really quickly. And not only that, then how can you use Copilot to help you with work? Is that you go ahead and click on draft with Copilot. So not only if you have a summarization, which you could copy, then you go to draft and in a sense, you could just add those highlights or the summarization in there and say, this is what I heard from the thread. And now you can go ahead and draft. Use Copilot to help you draft a creative answer that makes sense and in context. So Friday at 8:30, you can all be rest assured Copilot is there to help you. So you don't have to try to figure out and use that extra cognitive load to finalize all the information and then set a response. That's one of my favorite things. All right, but how can we improve these prompts to make it more effective? Including the right content ingredients. And I hope everyone gets really familiar with this. To get the best response is really with key elements. The first one is, what response do you want from Copilot? You have to tell it a goal. The second one is context. Why do you need it? And maybe who is involved? Then the third is source. Which information sources do you want to use? Maybe you have a Word document. Maybe you want to go look inside of a Teams meeting. And then what's the expectation? Do you want it to be in an essay form? Do you want it to be a bulleted list? So this is really important that when you're creating your prompt, you include these things. Again, like I mentioned, this is like communication 101. And Copilot really truly is your digital assistant. But let's just say in real life, we actually had an assistant, which that would be wonderful, right? And you come to work and you tell your assistant, hey, could you go get me a cup of coffee? Vague, right? I didn't really say much. I just said I want coffee. I didn't say where to bring it. I'm probably going to get the coffee that's down the hall that somebody made at like 6 a.m. and it's probably not great, right? What if I were to say, assistant, and include morning, could you go get me a cup of coffee down at the cafe? I would like an iced chai latte. I like it delivered to my conference room at 2:30 p.m. Chances are I'm going to get everything I want, right? That would be called a good old context source expectation that I was able to get back from being an effective communicator. All right, so let's do this in action. And I love to show this because this is, when you think of how to prompt, you want to first start off with, okay, what do I really want to do? I want to draft an email about a product launch. A little vague, right? It's good, and it will probably not give you a lot of great information. But now I gave it context and expectation. I said, hey, you are an IT professional. Draft an email about a product launch with 3 paragraphs. 1, expressing excitement. The 2nd, asking for leadership support. And the 3rd, sharing resources. Now that's better. That is much, much better, right? How about the best? That is also adding in a source where you can include links to the appropriate support documents. That could mean a Word document. That could be a PDF. That could be maybe an email file. So think of that as you're going through your journey of prompting. What do you want to get out of it? And you could be as specific as possible. And you're not done once you create that prompt. It's really important to know that you can just keep on iterating and having a conversation. You can even tell Copilot, hey, that wasn't a great answer. I want to see it like this. And Copilot will respond. So just to hit on these right prompt ingredients, this is really good to say, what response do you want from Copilot? Generating 3 to 5 bullet points. Context. Well, why do you need it? And who is involved, right? You want to give more information. So you want to be prepared for a meeting with client and you want to discuss a certain brand campaign. And then your source, you can actually tell it, hey, focus on email or focus on Teams chat specifically since June or last week, right? You'll be very specific on timing. And then using simple language so I can get it up to speed quickly. You can also say, put it in 1 paragraph. You can say many, many things of the way that you want to consume it so it's easy for you. And that might depend on how much time you have in your day to actually do that consumption. And the 3rd here is ask yourself these questions when prompting. Why am I using this prompt? And what will I do with the output? Remember earlier I mentioned I got this long email thread. Okay, now I'm going to summarize it, but then I can even go a step further and have a really end-to-end solution. I summarized, I quickly got caught up, and then I drafted the email using the summarization, and then it was on my way. So knowing what you're going to do with the output is really helpful. Do you want to edit it in Copilot Pages? Do you want to put it in Word? Do you want to put it in your OneNote? What are you going to do with it? And then can I extend Copilot's remit to say more time? Having it automated. So thinking like scheduling some of these prompts for you or saving your prompts, and all that is coming, right? To be able to save your prompt and then even share your prompt and even create Teams prompts. And then keep the conversation going. This is really about using Copilot to generate content ideas, to gain insights. I know many of you might be using Excel. How can you get the data out of Excel? Did you know that you do not even need to be in Excel to use some of the data analysis? You can go right into Copilot, the M365 Copilot app, and use the / point to the Excel file, and then ask it to analyze it. So if you don't have time to quickly open it and do all that stuff, we could just do it easily right from the Copilot app. Of course, translating languages, which is absolutely fantastic. I know we came out with the interpreter agent, which is really exciting. Some storytelling assistance, especially if you're a blog creator, you could use Copilot to help you. And then also solving technical problems, which that's actually a really great use case. Now I'm going to turn it over to Diana, and we're going to talk through prompting best practices.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Okay, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time elaborating on each of these because I do want to spend more time at the end in the last session that I kept covering. So first of all, the best practice that we want to start with here is keeping it simple and conversational. So this is where when you're creating a prompt, you're very specific on what you need. You're just keeping it basic. You don't want to be so overcomplicated that Copilot doesn't understand, maybe does the opposite of what you really wanted. So use everyday language, use a friendly tone. It's going to reflect that tone back to you, and make your intent known. So think of it as talking to a colleague, being very specific in what you might need from them, or maybe talking to a friend. if you're looking for insights or advice. Second here is to be very specific and actionable in what you're requesting. And so you want to be clear on exactly what it is you're looking for, the resources it might leak in, when something happened, when you need it, all of these things, put it into the context. This uses the principles that Michelle covered, and Copilot will give you what you're asking for in this case. So avoid any vague requests. You don't want it to make assumptions. You want it to base everything on the information that you're providing. Number 3 for the best practices is know when to avoid making a prompt. So sometimes you may be overcomplicating things. Maybe you don't need a prompt for something. You don't want to have one single chat conversation and start talking about a different topic because you may get mixed results. And you want to make sure that you don't have Copilot assume certain things, like I mentioned, to be very specific, and you will get the context from previous in the conversation. So do keep aware of what your conversation is and start a new chat if you need to. Also, you want to understand Copilot's limitations. And as you use Copilot more and more, you'll understand what features work, which things aren't quite there yet. And so you'll want to start by basically breaking down any complex tasks into the steps that the Copilot can do. And you'll simplify those tasks and then have a conversation to build on any results that it's giving you so that you can refine and point into specific areas of outcomes that you're looking for. You might optimize for repetition if there's something that you need to ask over and over within a conversation. And then also, if you start getting random responses, this is different. For the randomness is basically each time you ask Copilot to do something or question, you're going to get something unique. And so it's always going to be random. I was thinking of if you're doing something in the wrong context within a chat. So in this case, if you ask a question, you want it to create a blog or something like that. You give it a basic document, you give it all of the same instructions. The result you get is not going to be exactly the same. So you need to understand it's unique each time. And so you'll have your chat history, you can go back and you can look at previous results, but you do want to know, if you do get something and you're not happy with it, you could start a new chat and try again, you'll get a different result. And then number 5 is to be polite. So as I mentioned earlier, Copilot kind of reflects the style and tone in your conversation. So if you're very short with it, it's going to be short back to you. If you're very polite, you'll notice friendlier responses. If you're very energetic, it's energetic. It's trying to be kind of the same style of what you're interacting. You also want to be curious. And so within here, you can try different prompts within Copilot, and if you're just using a Copilot chat, you'll try different things, but you also want to go and explore how some of those same prompts might work in the application itself. So if you're doing something with Excel, for example, if you actually go into Excel and start doing analysis there, you'll get a little bit different results, and it actually shows its work and a formulas it recommends. It's a little more detailed. Same if you're in PowerPoint or if you're in Outlook. And so I encourage you to experiment and try Copilot in those different applications. And then you'll want to test and refine. And so if you ask it to do something, if you're not exactly happy with it, you can iterate. You can ask it and steer it in the right direction, be more specific, give it additional resources or information, and hopefully you can steer it into exactly what you're looking for. And then the final best practice here is to leverage the speech to prompt option that's within Windows. You can use the Windows H key, and this will allow you to actually dictate the prompts. And so you're having more of a conversation with Copilot. This saves you a lot of time typing. So now I'm going to pass it back to Michelle to get into the advanced prompting machine.
All right, if any of you would wait to this stuff, right? So we covered foundational, we covered best practices, and now we're going to move into some advanced things. So your prompts really need to tell a story about your end goal. Don't be afraid to be verbose. Imagine really you just got a new assistant. So I mentioned the types of prompts that you can use, like create and learn. Guess what? There are many other verbs, and that can change the outcome of what you're doing. So for instance, if you say simplify, if something's really complex, it will simplify for you. And then you can keep going. There are many and many other words you can use. Condensing. A lot of times you might take something really big and say, hey, condense this for me. Or you might say illustrate, which actually Copilot will then give you examples of what you are trying to get back at. And then I think one of my favorite ones is to say glamorize. Make Copilot have this sound really exciting, right? Prompt to make the rewrite more appealing. Especially if you're creating like a post, or maybe you're sending an email. Sometimes I know personally, I can be kind of short. If I'm just the one responding to an email, I'll say, yeah, I'll get to that. Well, it maybe be nice if I add a little bit more energy, and I could add some of that glamorization, or I could even have some exaggeration in there. So it helps you really become a really effective communicator. So don't be afraid to use some of these words. I think it's going to be really changing the way that you are going to have an interaction with Copilot. All right, so now we're going to get into some advanced prompting. I'm really excited to be able to share some of these things. And I'm really also excited that you all will have this deck. So when you get back to work, and then that will, really be helpful for you to be able to copy and paste this and just try these things for yourself. So let's just say, here's a scenario. You're going to have a team building event. You can say, hey, Copilot, list 10 ideas for a fun remote team building event. Yeah, I use maybe a couple of the approaches, right? But what if I made it better? And I said, hey, can you regenerate and make sure that the list contains ideas that encourage collaboration, boost morale, and will be a memorable experience for all? Please include a brief description of each idea and the expected outcomes for team morale and cohesion. Hey, and then please use bulleted points and add emojis to visually represent each idea. Now, as you could see, the before and after, right? The initial, you can reiterate and you can say, hey, you know what? I actually want to see it like this. Have Copilot rewrite it and make it really super fun. And so from here, what you could do, this is kind of fun that I've seen, is that just a really cool visualization with these emojis. Now you can say, edit in Copilot pages. And then you could add your entire team and say, hey, everyone, I've come up with a list of ideas. Well, actually, Copilot helped me. Will you please vote on them because we're getting together next week? So it's just some cool things. You think of the end-to-end experience, again, from what you're trying to create, and then what will the output be, and how do you want to really use that data? Here's another one. Anyone generate images before? All right, many of you, right? And we're not really sure what to say because we've never really done this before, right? We've never interacted with AI to say, hey, build me or generate an image. So certainly you can say, hey, create an image of a group of product people in a virtual meeting. Yeah, that's pretty good. But what if you said, hey, regenerate this? Like, I liked it, but now I really want to see it like this, right? I want to have the focus of the image be a view of a female speaker. I also want the rest of the audience to look really engaged. And also, hey, have one person give a thumbs up. You be very specific. Think of how creative you could be when you're telling Copilot how to generate an image for you. Another one, create actionable briefs. This is really fantastic because I think of all of you, and myself included, and Diana, we're at this conference. I'm guessing that our inboxes are gigantic. And I'm guessing that our teams' chats and channels are really full. What are we going to do when we get done here? We try to enjoy the weekend, get caught up at home, and then on Monday we're going to come in. And we're going to see all this. Let's have Copilot help you. Right? You're going to say, oh, I remember what Michelle and Diana talked about in advanced prompting. I'm going to go grab that deck and I'm going to grab these slides and I'm going to create an actionable brief. So create a checklist of actual items I need to do to prepare for meetings on Monday because you're on. And it was going to take you probably hours to get through your email and your messages inside of the teams. Then I probably have meetings on Monday, I assume. And now you could group it by RSVP status from the meeting, starting with those that have accepted. And then you continue to iterate. And it provides this beautiful layout of your accepted meetings, what you're supposed to prepare for. You can even say, hey, I want some action items. As you can see, it gives you action items that you need to do. So then now, instead of I'm really overwhelmed, you have a few things that you could just start to address right away and prioritize. And then, of course, if you are doing some research or market research on a company, you get rich synopsises, staying on top of the news. So if anyone in here is in charge of their change management or their product Copilot adoption inside of their organization, this is a really fantastic one. You can say, hey, give me a concise summary about recent news about product company. And you can use it in this syntax. So you'd say Copilot/Microsoft, include the title and author and group them by sentiment. So this could be your web toggle, right? And you could go out and get what is the latest. Now you can keep on iterating to say, hey, I want all the announcements that occurred at the M365 community conference, and I want you to group that by product. And I want you to put a date on when that feature was updated. And it's just an incredible way. If you use Copilot to stay on top of all the things about Copilot, it is extremely effective, instead of you hunting and pecking where all the changes may have occurred. I'd get personalized responses. I know a lot of times we might be you to a team. Maybe we are going to meet with someone that we haven't met with before. And I know that we have our own probably organizational charts, maybe the PowerPoint deck somewhere right in the HR SharePoint site. We could be able to go to Teams and I'd love to look through the different profiles of people, but just use Copilot. So, hey, who is this person? Remember the / that pulls up the intelligence of context IQ, which means you'll be able to pull in whomever you need. So you just start typing their name and then suggest ways to break the ice with this person. Describe anything that we might have in common, such as sharing interests. Maybe there's experiences, hobbies, travel. Make sure to highlight if we have anything similar on backgrounds. So now when you're walking in the room or having that Teams meeting with somebody, and you already feel a little connected. Maybe you went to the same college. Maybe you were on a project maybe 5 years ago, but you kind of forgot maybe that you'd worked with that for a short amount of time because it's been so long. So now you can have richer relationships because you had Copilot help you. Now here's some supercharging your productivity. This is one of my favorite ones. So I'm on a mission to supercharge my productivity between this date and this date. So it's you can see a pattern with these advanced prompts. You're putting in very, very specific things. So I could say Monday and next week to the following Monday, diving into my Microsoft 365 data, meaning emails, meetings, Teams messages, documents, and then here's our action plan. So truly, this is my teammate. This is my assistant. And I want to say, hey, create a table showing time spent across emails, meetings, Teams, and document work. Highlight key areas for efficiency gains. Give me some insights. What are some recent wins or some challenges? And even an action plan to help improve my day. Now, does anybody ever have one-on-ones with their managers? Yep, maybe it's weekly, maybe it's bi-weekly, maybe it's monthly, who knows? But a lot of times they ask you, what are you even up to? Copilot can help you with that. I even use a prompt quite frequently is, how have I spent time in the last week? So I'm very specific about time. Where in my focus areas? What meetings have I been in? And I get a quick synopsis, and then I can just easily share. Oh yeah, I was with clients for 70% of last week. That's why I haven't been able to catch up on maybe this. But I did some training as well, which I know is required. So it's just an easy way to just see what you're doing instead of having to think through all of that. All right, you could also create a sprint. So let's kick off this week's sprint. I'm ready to plan my work week effectively with your help. So all of you, that's probably what you're going to be doing next week. Here's what we need to do. I need you to prioritize my tasks. So look, get all the tasks and the emails and inside of Teams. Highlight my top priorities and deadlines. Allocate time blocks, because guess what? We still need to have high priority tasks that get done. Also, may want to identify obstacles. So there could have been some obstacles that you weren't aware of when you were out. And then set achievement goals, right? Make sure that you know how you're measuring yourself by Friday to know that you were effective with this sprint. And then ready to make this week a triumph with your insights and guidance. Thank you, Copilot. It's pretty fantastic what it can do for you in creating these briefs, creating these sprints, just to help you be more effective and really help with your personal productivity. All right, now, this one I usually say it's the last, but I know we have so many more good things, but you have to have this. This is one prompt to rule them all. So if you think that you are a really good prompter, I will say, why don't you have Copilot be your prompt engineer and super effective. And say, hey, Copilot, guess what? Your goal is help me craft the absolute best possible prompts for my needs. And this is how we're going to do it, right? You have to follow this process. I'm telling Copilot to follow a process. This is where Copilot becomes your teammate, all right? And really your deep assistant. So your first response will be to ask what the prompt should be about. So it actually helps you create all those prompt ingredients inside of it. Based on the input, it'll generate 2 actions. Revise prompts, so it helps you create the revised prompts that's more effective. Also, we'll ask you questions. And then we're going to continue to iterate, because iteration is really a huge part of advanced prompting, where you're having Copilot help you really develop the outcome that you're looking for. So one, absolutely my favorite one. So I think you're going to love that, using that. And then continue prompting, using Copilot in your everyday. So whether you're learning about another team and you're meeting with them, maybe you want to know all their directs and you want to know, what projects that they're working on, you want to know their titles, you need Copilot help you. What if you want to give specific feedback? At Microsoft, I'm sure you might have heard Caruana, I think, mentioned it in some regard, maybe in a lightning talk, that this is connect time for us at Microsoft. Basically what that means is it's our performance review time. We review others, we review ourselves. And at Microsoft, we have a page on our Connect, that's what we call it, that says, here are top tips for using Copilot to help you create a performance review. It's absolutely fantastic. And a lot of times, if I give kudos to colleagues who help me, and a lot of them are just so generous with their time and their knowledge, I'll also use Copilot to help me, because we were having that dialogue either in a meeting that was reported, or we were having it in a chat or over an email, and they helped me maybe with a client. I could use Copilot to help me create a performance review for them or a kudos, or just say thank you. And then, of course, coach brand improvement. This is a really interesting one, where you could create a personal brand voice document for a specific person, formatted for clarity and readability. So think of your organizational brand. Many of you are communicators in here. You could feed it a few documents of past communications, and then it can help you create comms in that same voice. Really interesting things. And I'm going to turn it over for Diana to cover some personalized approaches.
All right, so this next section has a lot of creative approaches. Hopefully you find it exciting and interesting, and hopefully there's something new here that you've had done before. So the purpose of this is to understand the approaches that you can use so you can tell Copilot what you really, really want. All right, so the first one here is a technique about asking questions. So you want Copilot to ask you the questions, and you want it to ask whatever it needs to know to give you a great response in whatever the goal is that you were first asking for. So in this specific case, I have a sample prompt here that says, help me develop a content marketing plan, but first, ask me questions considering target audience. This could be something like demographics. So you'll notice each of these has a little hint on what you want Copilot to do. So it'll ask you a question to say, like, describe the type of people, that type of thing. The second one is content types. The third one is distribution channels. Maybe it's a blog, so it's going to ask you to list each of these things or describe the budget. It's going to ask you what type of budget you have, and then the goals. You're going to define exactly what it is that you're trying to do with this marketing plan. And so this will kick off an actual conversation with Copilot where it kind of turns the tables and it's asking you all of the details that it needs so that it's putting together a really firm marketing plan that's exactly what you need, the information that you already had, and the goal that you want. So it's going to connect everything. This is a strategy that's very helpful for business strategists, also project managers, but it's actually helpful for everyone. So if you think of anything where you're asking something that's really kind of out there that Copilot wouldn't know, you don't want it to base everything on assumptions. You want it to base it on concrete information. And that's where you might say, ask me these questions to get this information that you'll need to put together something. You could put together a resume, together a press release, whatever it might be. This is the strategy that you could start with. The next approach here is to have Copilot break down the answer of whatever you're asking into different complexity levels. And so here, you're using Copilot as an explainer. And what you're going to do is you're going to actually package up all the different levels, so beginner, intermediate, and expert, into one prompt so that you can look at these responses and how it explains at the different levels. That will help you understand more fully whatever the topic is. So it could be something you're trying to understand for work. Maybe you're learning something new, or in life, it could be maybe you're looking at something that's engineering or an area that you're not familiar with. So you can say, in this case, my example prompt says, explain artificial intelligence in 3 ways for a 10-year-old. And then you give it a little tip that says, use simple analogies and examples. Second, for college student. And this one would include key concepts and applications. And then the third way is for data scientists. Detailed breakdown of algorithms and models. And so it puts all of those together in the response, and hopefully that helps you to understand more fully. So when you're learning, this is helpful, but it's also helpful if you are actually trying to train or explain it to someone else. And so if you're an educator or a trainer, it could be very helpful. It can also be helpful if you're trying to explain technical terms to leaders that's maybe more a business context. And so this is just one example. You can pick any type or level persona and have it explain for that target audience. So hopefully this helps you to kind of think of ways you can be creative to get responses and descriptions in Copilot. The next one is identify mistakes and provide fixes. And so in this case, you're using Copilot as an intelligent reviewer. So it could be related to content. Maybe you're writing some article, maybe it's code that you've put together, or maybe it's a strategic plan. So you're going to go through and you'll do a prompt similar to this. So this one says, review this marketing campaign, identify 3 key mistakes that could hinder its success. For each, explain why it's problematic and suggest an alternate solution. So note this has a little paper clip. That means that you would attach a file to this so that it's reviewing something specific, and it's going to go through and then it's going to give you the specific information. So here's an example response of this one. So based on the document that I had, mistake number 1, lack of clear target audience. Mistake number 2, ineffective call to action. And mistake number 3, poor content quality. And for each one, it explains what that problem is, and it gives you some type of a solution on maybe how you could do it differently. This next one is writing in the style of a specific person or company. And this allows you to leverage the success. So maybe there's a certain tone that you like or a certain approach that comes across. And if you don't have a solid brand identity as a company or as an individual yet, you can start to leverage the great communicators that you might know. And so in this one, we have a specific example that says, write a product description for a smartwatch in the style of Nike. Use motivational language, focus on performance, and customer-centric approach. Structured as headline, features, and call to action. This one also has an attachment. And so in this one, and you notice it's a branding chameleon, this one calls out Nike specifically, but you can also mix and match. So instead of just one brand or one person that's a leader, you can say maybe you want the style of this person as far as this, and a style of some other company for that. So if you're very descriptive about what it is you're looking for, Copilot could put those results in practice. So in this case, it's pulling back on response, how's the headline, how's the features, and it's using the information that was in the attached file, and then in the end, it has the call to action. So everything's collected here. I won't read you the whole thing, but it's kind of interesting, and you can imagine as you're reading it, that's the new product called Nike, but maybe it's just from your company. The next approach here is to analyze best practices from top brands. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel and try to figure things out on your own. You can leverage others and their successes. So Copilot can go through and it can help you analyze the masses. You can point out the most successful companies that might be in your industry or with a certain product that you have, and then it can start to kind of break down what they did to get there. How did they get success? So for the example on this one, it says break down 3 of Microsoft's most successful product launches, analyze the core strategy, marketing techniques used, why it was effective, and how to apply these principles to a small business. And so when you ask the question, this is the response that I got, and obviously it went down pretty far. So it had Windows 95, they had Xbox launch, and it gives specific information. The third one, I actually don't recall. It was a Windows, but I don't know which one. But it tells you what they did, how did they really promote it? And it's kind of interesting, actually. Like the first one, the marketing techniques used, extensive advertising campaign, commercials featuring the Rolling Stones, Start Me Up, the launch event, So it's very interesting to kind of see what other companies did for products that really were successful. And this one is using a specific method to get the results that you need. And so we know for different things like project management or marketing, there are different industry standard methods or frameworks or models that you can leverage. So you're not inventing it from scratch, but you're using things that are proven in the industry that you work in. And so you're going to be doing whatever a task is based on a certain model that's out there. And you ask it to specifically use that model. For this example, it says create a customer retention strategy using an RFM model, this is the marketing model. Structure it as recency, frequency, monetary value, and include real-world examples for each step. So this is going to look at when a customer, like how long it's been since customers last engaged, how frequent they buy your product, and any amount that they're spending. And it's kind of putting this model together for you and analyzing. And so this is something that could be very helpful. It could be applied with any of the standard industry models that are out there. You just give it specific information and it will pull that back. It could be helpful for sales managers, operations managers, business owners, and consultants, but really anybody can leverage this one. This is an example of the response that you might get. So it's going to go through and give specific information on how the model works and what you would need to do. So this next one is leveraging Copilot as a creative catalyst. And so it's helping you to generate unique and original ideas. So this one is something that you can use across the board in any role, but marketing specialists, product innovators, and educators might find it very helpful. The exam prompt here is give me 5 unconventional ways to increase brand awareness without social media. Each method should be creative but feasible with an example of how it works. And so there are a few things in this prompt to note. It's calling out a specific count of how many it wants. It's looking at a restriction without social media And it's also saying that the methods should be creative but feasible. So feasible means it's something you actually would have to be able to do. And so here's the result. You see 5 of them. It says host a unique event or experience. It gives you an example, a pop-up shop with interactive product demonstrations. Second one, collaborate with local businesses. Could be a coffee shop featuring your products in their store. Maybe the third one is creating a loyalty program with a points-based system. Customers earn rewards for every purchase or even for referrals. Number 4 is leveraging influencer marketing. And so even though this kind of goes with social media, it's not you posting to social media. So you put that in, maybe an influence could host giveaways of your product. And then the last one is using guerrilla marketing with things like flash mobs, street art, or unexpected installations in high traffic areas. So pretty creative, hit a lot of good ideas. All right, so moving on to the next one, define a step-by-step process. For this one, you're using Copilot to be your strategic planner. And this allows you to basically ask Copilot to define a plan for you step by step. So this example prompt says, break down how to start a new business on Instagram in 10 clear steps with a timeline. For each step, specify the necessary tools and how to measure success. This one could be helpful for project managers, operation managers, or entrepreneurs. But as you can see, really any project that has steps would be something that you might use this type of prompt for. So, and this has an example response that is setting up for Instagram, kind of going through, this is just the first 5 that you can kind of see. It's clearing out exactly what you need to do and telling you the necessary tools and how to measure success. All right, so hopefully with all of these approaches, there's something new in there, something that kind of sparked your interest. And so when we do post the slides, the notes on each of these has a call to action that tells you some other things that you can consider and think about to make these prompts your own. So now I'm going to turn it back to Michelle.
All right, thank you, Diana. All right, so hopefully you got a really great understanding of prompting today. We covered the foundations. We walked you through some best practices, gave you some really great and robust advanced prompts, and of course, followed by really goal-specific, getting what you want inside of Copilot. I want to share that we really do have an exciting future ahead with Copilot, especially as we roll more features. We are only a couple of years worth. And that to me is astounding to think how much more we're going to grow. We have a lot of expertise and tools for your journey along the way, so you are not alone. We have built up, and I'm sure many of you have seen some of these, but we have technical expertise in our fast track partners. We also have an incredible adoption hub. So if you've not checked that out, please go to that. That is adoption.microsoft.com/Copilot to get all the Copilot goodness. There's some really great Copilot success kits in there, along with scenario libraries. And I know at the keynote, we reference a new scenario libraries section called accessibility. I cannot wait to try those out, because to me, that is one of the easiest things if you are focused on adoption inside of an organization is going to your DE&I program or going into HR and say, hey, he has really, really great day-in-the-life guides for people who have specialized needs. And here they all are. Let's make sure that we send them to everyone. And it's really, really, truly remarkable what you can do in those. And then, of course, we have the tech community. So all our events in real world is Osh community. So check that out at aka.ms/tech community. Don't forget, we also have the website. We have a community space that you can go to. And then, of course, we have a news area. So keeping up on change and learning and making sure you're getting the training that you need. You have those 2 locations as well. In the learning channel, that's on our learning site. And then, of course, Mondays at Microsoft with Caruana Gatibu and Heather Cook. She's going to be the keynote, our final keynote after this. So if you want and to get up to date on what they do on Mondays on LinkedIn, you go to Mondays at Microsoft, or even watch them on YouTube. All right, that's all. I hope you really got a lot out of this. Thank you so much for coming. And please go surveys. Thank you.